and it's their intrinsic
nature. It's food basically.
Sound, visual, sound.
Everybody, thanks for watching and welcome to part 3 of preparing for the PreMetu3. And if you've seen part 5 of Saturn Satan, I highly recommend that you do see it if you can purchase it. You don't really need to. I mean, it will help you a lot in this video. As I said, these series like the PreMetu3 and Mystery School series and a couple other things that's going to be coming up later, it's really, it really ties in together. As I said, I can't put, everything into the Saturn Satan series because some of these things actually branch off into different subjects, which is why we went into PreMetu3, preparing for PreMetu3. We didn't get into actual PreMetu3 yet, which we will. And we're going into the mystery schools and everything is basically going to tie together. So much information that it's impossible to put it into one series. It's a lot that dips off into different branches, different subjects. So if you've seen part 5, it's definitely going to help you out in this video. And it's almost like a continuation, but also still getting into things that pertains to the PreMetu3 itself and, other books, the writings of the ancient Egyptians. It's all throughout Kemet. And from those writings, these sacred writings, we get the Book of the Dead and a lot of papyruses, the papyrus of Ani or Anu. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Book of the Dead a little bit here. And, when you start digging into PreMetu3, when you start reading these books, it's very hard, to just, you got to know the symbols. You got to understand how to read it and everything like that. But it's even harder to really understand what they're talking about. That's the toughest part. Because some of the stuff is, straight to the point and, you'll understand what it's talking about, but you won't understand what it's talking about. You know what I'm saying? You'll understand what it's describing. Like it's talking about a lotus or talking about a flower blossoming or talking about, a bird or something like that. But what it entails about this bird or flower is kind of confusing. And this is something that we're going to get into so I can break it down so you can understand how to read it. Because if you read the Bible or Shakespeare and you think it's weird, when you start reading PreMetu3, I mean, it gets weird. I mean, it's funny how they describe certain things. I mean, they talk about, entrails and, dung and all kinds of weird ways they put stuff. And a lot of the hieroglyphics confuse people, like the whole big deal that they went through. If you ever seen people talk about this, they say, well, the ancient Egyptians was gay because they didn't understand the process of, doing the slicing the tip of the penis or circumcision or what have you and stuff like that. And they see certain depictions and they automatically think gay and they don't understand what these depictions are actually representing. It's really clear when you understand how to read this stuff and you understand that it's not gay. The people didn't even really think like that. And they understood it was a spirit out there of, homosexuality. And I got into all that kind of stuff. If you watch my series about the whole human history and how we are basically mutations of women and why a man would have emotions like that, they understood all that. So, it wasn't no big deal. But when you get into the PreMetu3 and you start reading about certain things, and it's really going to be tough, as I said, for you to understand it. So we're really going to get into that, and we're going to really get into how they looked at things in the beginning on a microscopic level. So when you start reading PreMetu3, when you start reading the Book of the Dead and stuff like that, you'll see, quantum physics, astrology, they're talking about nature and animals and stuff like that. Things that's small, the beginning. And we understand from part 5 about, why they talking about that. Remember, this solar system came into existence because of the Big Bang. And we talking about once the supernova happened, the so-called Big Bang, we talking about even the smallest, most microscopic particles were so hot and so full of energy, and they clashed into each other and created, huge amounts of energy and everything like that, which eventually gave us our sun and our solar system. So even at the most microscopic level, we see amazing stuff happen. We see the formation of a sun, the formation of a solar system, and ultimately the formation of life. So, of course, they took everything back. And when you look at the creation story of us versus the creation story of the ancient Egyptians, you can see the Big Bang in the Egyptian creation story is basically Ptah, the creator god, speaking into existence, or creating the Agdod and speaking into existence Atum and everything like that. It's the Big Bang. You can kind of parallel it with the waters far as the waters of Noon against the space, because that's basically what it's talking about, space. So you had this stuff happen at the smallest level. So the ancient Egyptians really begin there at the smallest level and start looking at things on a microscopic scale. And they basically telling you that by giving you the creation story. I mean, they knew from studying the creation story about eventually they would get into math and the Fibonacci sequence and, the golden ratio. If you starting to study things on a microscopic scale, this is what you will find as you start to zoom out. And of course, they ran into all this stuff. And this is all unbelievably, this is huge knowledge. And they put this stuff to work, as we can see with the building of pyramids and temples and stuff like that. But this is a huge thing that they begin to understand and put into use. So when you look at the beginning and how these small particles will eventually give life and create the cyanobacteria that will bring about animals and everything like that. When you look at the creation of even us, we know everything is made up of atoms, and atoms are also ultra microscopic. But the key to both of these things, becoming something more, is of course the sun. So now we know that it was the sun that gave cyanobacteria its life. And we could say that the sun, or the energy from the sun, is basically the soul of cyanobacteria. But you can see that when you start studying the progress of the ancient Egyptians and start looking at the text, the pyramid text and all of the PreMetu3, and you can see that they dealt with the question of, did our soul come from the sun? Is our energy, our soul, like some sort of, energetic, conscious energy, of the sun, basically devoid of matter? So is our soul, the energy of the sun, devoid of matter? Is it the same kind of energy? And they flirted with this. And the whole thing is, energy has to be infinite. It has to be seen and unseen. It has to be, because when you look at existence, and as I said, existence has always existed. There has always been something. Nothing is still something. So, existence is infinite. What the problem we run into, is consciousness. That's the whole thing. It's all about consciousness. Eventually, at one point, consciousness became aware of itself, and consciousness becoming aware of itself, made that first move, as they show you in the formation of the tree of life, the flower of life pattern. It made that first move. Now understand, making that first move took energy. So energy had to have always been there, just like, existence has always been here. So the ancient Egyptians looked at it, well, energy must have always been here along with existence. The thing was, consciousness wasn't aware of itself, and it wasn't aware of the energy. And when it became aware of itself and became aware of energy, it made the first move. It made its first move, and then the next move after that took energy, and so on and so forth. And everything that came into existence after that requires energy. So no way around that. It's inescapable. Everything requires energy. So energy must have always been, just like existence. So we can say that the universe is infinite and that energy is infinite as well. And nothing can come into existence without energy. It can't happen. So when we look at the quantum physics, we look at the ultra small in quantum physics. And if we go to, you know, string theory, strings to quarks, to protons and neutrons, to eventually atoms, you know, this is a steady flow of energy that we get to reach the atom. And, you know, when you look at the ancient Egyptian creation story, they called it the water waves of noon, and everything came into existence from that. So we're talking about the, you know, the steady flow, the wave of atoms, steady flow of energy leading to the creation of the atom or atom. And, the ancient Egyptian creation story. So we know in the story you had Shu and Tefnut and, you know, Geb and Nut. And remember in the story you had that Shu and Tefnut got lost, and Atum sent the eye out and brought them back. They came back with the eye of Atum, or the eye of Ra. And he brought them back, and he was so happy that he wept, and it was the tears, the water, that brought about, you know, life on earth. And this is basically, you know, the same thing when we look at the creation story of us, how life came out of the waters, you know, the primordial soup or whatever you want to call it. And it's the same thing. You can bounce it off back and forth, and it's trying to tell you something in this story, and there's a lot more to it when you look, you know, deeply into it. But they understood, and to me, the fact that they understood this so long ago, which obviously the scientists and researchers of today, way back then, look back and could see what the Egyptians was talking about, and understood that, you know, this is how life came into existence. And when they did their research, all they had to do was match it up with what the Egyptians was talking about, because they knew, you know, they was on point. And of course it did match up. I mean, this is stuff that, you know, can be proven. This is all scientific research. We know about atoms and everything. So the simple fact that they knew about this so long ago is mind boggling. And it tells us that we're dealing with a group of beings that is beyond this universe. And, you know, we're going to get into all that. So we know when these superstorms was forming over the earth, cooling down the magma, giving us land, and eventually giving us life. You know, the same thing matches up with the ancient Egyptian creation story, where Atum crying basically in the water, you know, bringing about life. So they just basically substituting the sun as we know it, because remember, the sun is the reason why we got life, or the cyanobacteria, and then Atum, which is also the sun, or Atum Ra, or Ra, whatever you want to call him, is also the sun, and his tears basically brought about life. So the stories, you know, as I said, you know, matches up. When we go to the Mystery Schools DVD, what did we talk about in there? We basically validated everything, and we seen the conclusion that they came up with, basically saying that it's math that is the language, it governs the universe, mathematics. So when we look, we remember from the ancient Egyptian creation story, what did they put in place to govern everything? Ma'at. And basically, you know, math comes from ma'at. And it's a lot of people that will tell you the same thing. It's the universal law. It's math, ma'at, that governs everything. There's no way around it. You know, it don't matter. We always say with the law, you know, if it don't add up, you know, you're guilty. It has to add up. We always use mathematical terms when we're talking about truth and justice and righteousness. It has to add up. It has to make sense. And math always makes sense. You know, you can't lie with math. It is what it is. 1 + 1 = 2. No matter how you slice it, it's going to equal 2. If you call it something else, that is against nature. That's against the laws of reality. So they were really heavy into this and understanding. And they knew, obviously, about math. And they knew about this whole grammatria, whatever you want to call it, system. This is, you know, it's bogus. I hate that a lot of people are just discovering this stuff now, and they're giving a lot of credit to so many people who don't deserve the credit, when all the credit goes back and should go back to the ancient Egyptians, because they already knew about this stuff. They built it, you know, and that's the thing, you know, Aristotle and Thales and, you know, so many other Greek scholars, all the stuff that these people are accredited with, you know, all the Greek scholars who did anything, you know, Da Vinci, everything, all these people, the Egyptians built this stuff. I mean, for them, it's like, okay, you did this stuff later. The Great Pyramid basically has everything these people has ever done in it. And that's the point of it. And that's the thing that blew me away when I started really looking into it. I'm like, damn, They put the golden ratio. They put the Fibonacci sequence. They put pi. And the crazy part is you find pi in so many different places in Kemet that is crazy. I mean, the little archways that they left that the sun peered through, that's pi. And this is where they got the symbol from, actually, from a lot of the temples where the sun shine through is the symbol for pi. So, I mean, they stole so much and they get a lot of credit for stuff. And we start learning about these people in school, all these, Greek historians and stuff like that. The only person I really bang with is Herodotus, because Herodotus did at least tell the truth on a lot of stuff pertaining to the ancient Egyptians. He gave them a lot of credit. I mean, he basically told the truth. Egyptians did this, they did that, they was black, this is what they did, they created this, all the Greeks came there, and he told the truth about a lot of stuff. And you just had a lot of other Greek historians who were getting initiated into the schools, really just studying, Greek people and giving them credit. And of course, they wasn't going to give us credit. So I hate to see people jump into the teachings of Thales and Pythagoras and give them all this credit and not, acknowledge Kemet. So, that's kind of crazy. Now, remember, we have the gods that was created and everything. We got Isis, which is the god of health and marriage. We got Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, the god of life and death and resurrection. We got Seth, the god of evil. Thoth, the god of wisdom. Nephthys, the protectress of the dead and mummies, goddess of lamentation. So remember, these gods was created before the earth was created, before people. So, why were gods created and given these kind of attributes before people was even created? Now we can look at these things as being the part of the dual nature. These guys represent the dual nature of reality. They represent things that exist, principles and reality that exists. So we know you can't really deal with some of these things unless, this is something around. There must be some kind of life to give us the energy of love, to give us the energy of beauty and everything like that. It's something that we would think is a human trait, it's human stuff, love and beauty and lamentations and burying the dead and life and death. If people are not alive yet to even worry about life and death, so why create these gods before that? So, they must have known that it had to be life before us. And this energy was already out there. Now, again, we can argue that these are human emotions and feelings, but we know cats and animals, dogs and stuff like that feel love. They feel fear and everything like that. They have these same kind of emotions like we do. So we got to remember that these animals was on the earth before us. So we are the last creation to be put on this planet, but animals existed before us. Dogs feel love. They feel fear. They feel when you are fearful and scared and stuff like that. Many animals do. They have emotions. We've seen it. So we can't put these things in the category of strictly human. It's not what makes us human. It's our soul, our energy. We are unique in that aspect. And it's something that a lot of people who, when you start digging into PreMetu3 and everything like that and the creation story, a lot of people looked over that. A lot of people ain't even think about it. Well, wait a minute. Why would they create these guys and give these guys these kind of, attributes before people was even created? So, this is just a hint. This time we're going to get into much later, and it's deep. You got to understand, this stuff existed. It's an energy. It had to be here before us. So, we can't just, take it as human emotions. We have to really ascribe it to every living thing. And if you really want to get deep into it and break it all the way back down, we don't even know if life on the ultra small microscopic level can feel these same type of emotions. We see a bug, we step on it and we kill it. And we see a fly, we try to swat it down. We don't know, the system, the life, the reality of bugs and insects and animals. And it's something that the ancient Egyptians strive to understand, So, they looked at the dung beetle, the scarab beetle, and said, whoa, look at what this beetle does. And it lays its eggs inside the dung. It's an amazing thing. So they understood stuff and they took the energy from it and, took the attributes from it and put them in people, into their gods, and say, well, you know what, this God represents this thing. So when we think about emotions and feelings, understand, as I said, these are energies. So as I said in part 5, remember, universe came into existence 4.5 billion years ago. Universe, I mean, our solar system, I should say, 4.5 billion years ago. But before that, there existed the rest of the universe that they say exists between, 12 and 16 billion years before we did, or in that area somewhere. It's a long time ago. We know that. As I said, some life, something had to have come into existence besides us in this vast universe. And that's obviously true. I don't even like to even speculate that. I know 100% for sure, based upon what I just know about what's out there. Of course, there's an abundance of life that's out there, and it's obvious. And of course, these beings, whatever they are, whatever they look like, they must have the same kind of dealings as us. They must feel love, hate. It has to be a sense of good and evil. It has to exist, energy. I mean, you take it back, it's still, the emotions that we feel is still an energy. You can put it in a person energetically. I mean, if you want somebody to feel an emotion, I mean, it's just an electrical shock. Remember, he was talking about in the Matrix, it's just electrical signals interpreted by the brain. Feelings and emotions, work the same way. I mean, you can energetically put love into a person. If you play music, that is still a frequency, that is still an energy. A scary movie, I mean, so many things that you can, a picture even, I mean, still, this is still energy. We look at it as matter, but it puts out an energy. So you may not think that when you look at a scary movie that the TV is putting out energy or something like that, but really, it is. And not only that, you are also creating the emotion of fear within yourself, because you're seeing this stuff. Bottom line, when you trace it, it's still an energy. So the Egyptians understood that, it's energy all around us, seen and unseen. It is basically the nature of reality. And when you look at, again, the Agdod, and the Agdod is basically telling you that these things are things that always existed. Nun and Nunet, which is the watery abyss, Ha and Hahet, the infinite and finite, Ka and Ket is the darkness and the light, Amun and Amenet is the seen and unseen, the hidden and the revealed, basically. So they understood that reality exists in all of this. You think about reality, it consists of these things, hidden things, infinite things, light and darkness. And these emotions are no different. And it's an energy that, if you think about it, when the first intelligent life, which would have to be consciousness itself, when it came into existence, these emotions had to follow. These things had to, because consciousness, once it made the first move and it has something to move relative to, it can feel some type of way about that next move. Now, remember, in part 5, we talked about DNA and us having this animal DNA. So now we know that the ancient Egyptians obviously understood this. This is why we see so much animal stuff everywhere. The whole animal heads and everything people always talk about, and thinking that we worship animals and all that. We see the depiction. So when you look at the depiction of Khnum fashioning man on a potter's wheel, it's representing the fact that, they understood, of course, that we come from women, that women give birth to human beings. So seeing Khnum fashion man on a potter's wheel is saying that, our bodies is a creation. Our bodies was created. Our souls is put into the creation by Khnum. So Khnum puts the Ka into our bodies, our soul. So the reason why they have Khnum there with the ram's head is because in the ancient Egyptian language, soul and ram actually sounds the same. And we always see that depiction with Khnum fashioning a man, and you always look over and you see Haket there too. And Haket is basically creating the body of man inside the womb of the woman, the egg or what have you. And we know she is depicted as a frog. And as we also talked about in part 5, is how our insides, our muscular and skeletal systems resemble frogs. So this is why they use Heket and used her as a frog and gave her that attribute and described that to her, because it's talking about our insides, and we see it resembles frogs. Now, we also talked about how we share genes with cows. And remember, Haru, when he was born in the manger, Haru was there, or Hathor was there, symbolizing the surrogate mother. And this is all metaphorically speaking and trying to tell you that we have this DNA. And, you know, you would think, how can a cow be a surrogate mother to, you know, something that's supposed to be like a human being? And, you know, this is why it's just symbolic that we share these same genes. And this is what it's talking about. We know that they stole that with Christianity, with Jesus in the manger and everything like that. You know, we see the cow always there. Now, it's one thing to see the cow there once. You know, if you see it there once, it's like, okay. But most of the depictions that we see, we always usually see this cow. So we know this is where they're stealing it from. They're taking it from, you know, the creation story of Haru. And you can look at a lot of different pictures of the whole, you know, Jesus in the manger, and you'll see that cow there. And it's just clearly plagiarism. And we see, you know, that they taken it from the ancient Egyptian creation story of Haru. But, you know, when you look at many of the depictions of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, you always see animals in some kind of zoomorphic form and some kind of animalistic nature, something taking place that's dealing with animals, because they understood the connection that we have and that we share these genes and DNA. So now when we go back and look through history, it just seems like everything begins with the ancient Egyptians. And this is like what everybody is really into. It's the most read about subject in the world. Even there's more books printed on ancient Egypt than any other subject. That's a known fact. So many people study it, but it's not much known, you know, really about the world before that. And it seems like every time we look into stuff, it stops at Kemet. Now, obviously, it was, you know, stuff was going on before that. A lot of stuff that they obviously don't want us to know. Now, the thing is, when you look at ancient Egypt, we know it's old, it's ancient. But the thing is, we can trace the culture of Kemet, you know, back through Nile Valley and, you know, Nubia, you know, all the way into Ethiopia, into Tia in Ethiopia. And we find artifacts. They've been finding artifacts for years, dating, you know, over 15,000 years. So we're talking, that's a large gap between the dynasties and these Africans at the time. So, you know, when you go back to Ethiopia, we know about things. We know about Nut, and we know about the whole ancient Egyptian creation story. We know what hieroglyphics look like. You would expect to only find these things in, you know, maybe Nubia, but in Egypt as well. You don't expect to find them as far south as Ethiopia. And of course, you know, we do. When you go to Tia in Ethiopia, you know, they find Nut. You find in Nubia the 6,000, 7,000 year old carvings and writings, hieroglyphic looking depictions from these cultures. So it's obvious, as we always say when people talking about Kemet, that, you know, Kemet came up through the Nile Valley civilizations, you know, and ultimately landed in Kemet. The thing is, when they got to Kemet, were the pyramids there. And of course, those pyramids was already there. So we're talking about thousands of years ago, you know, that we have this whole culture, Egyptian culture. Excuse me if you hear little kids screaming in the background. There's a bunch of kids outside. But you hear, you see the culture everywhere going up Nile Valley from these Africans. And we got to remember that Africa wasn't always called Africa. Even in the Bible, they call it Ethiopia because that's what it was called. And it's supposed to be the cradle of life there, where life supposedly began, which is another weird thing because it seems like that's the furthest back we can go and find, like, not artifacts, but find like life, and find life doing something before ancient Kemet. And then it's not a coincidence that it's the same people who basically started the dynasties. So obviously something was going on. And that's why a lot of people believe that, you know, before people lived on the surface of the earth, they lived inside the earth, because you just don't find nothing. It's not much known about the world, about Southern Africa during this time. So remember in part 1 of PreMetu3, we was talking about the pyramids. I showed you the video when the archaeologists and the researchers was basically looking at the pyramids and examining the stones. And he said that the pyramids could very well be, over 100,000 years old. So when you see that video, when you see that they were finding these artifacts 20,000, 15,000 years ago, I mean, it's almost proof that the pyramids are at least 100,000 years old, much older than 15, 20,000 years old, because we know, that civilization, those Ethiopians, they aren't the people, they aren't the ones who built the Great Pyramids. They didn't come up the Nile Valley into Kemet and built those pyramids. The pyramids were there long before them, because you can look at, just what they had through their journey up the Nile Valley and see they definitely didn't possess the type of knowledge it would take for you to create those pyramids. So again, those pyramids definitely was there before they made it up the Nile Valley. I mean, it took them a long time to get up through the Nile. So, the more you start to study and you start looking at this stuff, it almost seems like, the ancient Egyptians, I mean, these Africans survived some kind of cataclysmic event, as I always talk about, because it just took so long for them to go from Ethiopia up into Nubia. Something happened possibly twice on the planet, maybe between that time, or it just, took them a long time to really start to establish civilizations up and down the Nile, before they finally got to Nubia, then eventually Kemet. Now, the Egyptians understood that the body was about transformation, that every day your body goes through a transformation because of the effect of time on the body. So the scarab beetle was deified as, Khepri, and they looked at the scarab beetle as being, like a god because of what it did. The dung beetle basically rolled this ball of dung around across, the ground, and all across who knows where they rolled this ball. And the ancient Egyptians looked at it as, the sun moving across, the sky, and eventually, causing rebirth, coming back up. And they looked at that and said, the scarab beetle is, it's a bad mother. The scarab beetle basically is its own creator, its own god. Because remember, the scarab beetle lays its eggs inside the dung, and they roll that dung around. And then eventually at some point, life is going to come out of that dung. So they looked at it and said, the scarab beetle is a god. It basically is like the sun. It makes its own being. It creates itself. It's a self-creator. So when we look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which I have, if you don't have this, you should definitely try to pick this up if you can. It's a book that we're going to go through, because I think if you just pick this book up and try to read it, when you get to a lot of the plates, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to really understand it. I think it's better to understand the Book of the Dead when you can read hieroglyphics versus how they print it in English. It's hard, but it's easier when you know both. But when you look at plate 20 in Book of the Dead, so I won't read the whole thing. I'm going to go in here. It says, "Hail to you, Harakti, Khepri, the self-created. How beautiful is your shining forth from the horizon when you illuminate the two lands with your rays." And you're going to find a lot of references in the Book of the Dead to Khepri, because whenever they wanted to talk about immortality and stuff like that, they use Khepri. So again, the reason why they understand this stuff about the dung beetle is because they study existence from the very beginning, from the energetic form of existence, which is basically just energy, into, space. And then you have energy combining and creating elements. And then eventually we get matter, and eventually we get life. I mean, they took it from, as I said, from energy up into to bacteria and insects. I mean, even when we go later, we'll start getting into like the domains. You have like mineral domains and sand and stuff like that. I mean, they study everything, because you have to really think about dirt. You got to think about sand. You got to think about minerals. And we know that plants grow. When you got a plant in the ground, it can survive and live, not just because of the sun, but because of the minerals and everything it draws from the earth. So that's a life sustainer. That's a life sustainer. That's an energy giver. It's the dirt itself. It's alive. It's giving life. So of course you will look into that. The same thing with crystals and crystals is I think that's a whole video in itself that's going to be on YouTube. We're going to get into that down the road, but it's going to be a video that's combined with a lot of the stuff we're going to get into down the road as well. But we're going to get into that whole, the whole thing, people with crystals, why they got them all around them and everything like that. We're going to get into that. And I'm going to really explain to you the power because it's deep. We're going to get into that. But, they studied everything at that level. And so they understood, how stuff went, how stuff goes. They deified any animal or any plant life or anything that they can basically relate to or take attributes from. So if it was an animal that they wanted attributes from, they deified it, or, they ascribed it to a god. So when you look into the Book of the Dead, when you look into it, you'll see a lot of weird things. And remember, it's really getting into transformation. I'm not worshiping the animal. I want to be the animal. I want the energy from it, stuff like that. So when you look into the book, you'll see stuff like a chapter for being transformed into a snake, or a chapter for being transformed into a crocodile, even a chapter for being transformed into a lotus. They understood also, that the gods or, certain beings had certain attributes. So they ascribed them, attributes from animals. They ascribed them animals because they just represented what certain animals do, and vice versa. It's just how they really looked at everything from the beginning. So you would have to know something deeply amazing about a lotus or about a flower to actually want to write about it and actually want to mimic it or be it, because, it's a flower. It's just sitting there. What's special about it? And then, they understood, about the bees and pollinating the whole planet and everything like that. I mean, the stuff is deep. The amount of things they really looked into and got every ounce of knowledge from it that, you would be amazed that, a brain can compute so much deep stuff. It's crazy. It's mind boggling. And it's just like way too much stuff to ever be able to get into. It's just something you have to study on your free time, when you get a chance. But we're going to get into the good stuff. So when you do study that stuff on your free time, you'll be able to really understand it. So that was a major key that I wanted people to really understand about the ancient Egyptians. It wasn't animal worship at all. It was really, understanding that we are made up of animals as well. And we have these similar attributes, and we should basically try to understand how to bring them out of us. So, it wasn't, worship the scarab beetle. It was be the scarab beetle. Every day that scarab beetle, as I said, rolled the dung across the ground, basically symbolizing the sun. The sun, goes across the sky every single day. The scarab beetle flies at noon every single day. It flies when it's the hottest outside. The scarab beetle flies. So we know the sun is the hottest thing up there, and it goes across the sky just like the scarab beetle. Of course, they was going to acknowledge that, and eventually the sun dies at night and is reborn in the morning. The dung beetle is, reborn. It rolls that ball of dung and life will come out of it eventually, so they acknowledge all these things. Resurrection had to do with the scarab beetle and, of course, Osiris. So, again, when we go look at the papyrus of Anu, we look at plate 27. It says, I am the soul of Re, who issued from the primordial water, that soul of the God who created authority. Wrongdoing is my detestation, and I will not see it. I think about righteousness, and I live by it. I am authority which will never perish. And this my name of soul. I come into being of myself with the primordial water, and this my name is Kefri, and I come into being in it daily. So, when you look at a lot of this stuff, it's talking about life. It's just talking about, things coming into existence, and so many different things, how it reacts in reality and nature. So the ancient Egyptians understood energy and consciousness. They understood that death was just another transformation. And if you make it, to the afterlife, if you make it, let's say, to judgment, or if you die with full consciousness and you make it to be judged on the scales of Ma'at, then you can move on to the next level. Now, a lot of people always ask about this. This is one of the questions I get. What is that whole thing about? The whole scene. Like I always show Hunefer's Book of the Dead, when he's being judged on the scales of my eye. You see Horus taking him through the whole judgment ceremony to stand before, Osiris, Asar. So what is that about? A lot of people always ask. So that whole scene is basically saying, this is obviously not something that's going to happen. You're not going to have to stand before, these beings and be judged on a scale. It's saying that if your heart, which we know the heart is the biggest energetic organ in your body, it's the thing that really controls, your energy. It's not your brain. Remember, it's a little stem that connects your brain to your heart. Your heart is the main thing. It's where the power source, your energy, really lies. And if your heart is balanced with the feather of Ma'at, which is everything, truth, righteousness, justice, everything is right. If you live your life the correct way, you don't fill your heart, your energy with evil, you don't have any malice or hate or anything like that, you're a good person. Good. If you do everything you're supposed to do, you meditate and all that kind of stuff, you do what it takes for you to open all your chakras and make it to this judgment, which is basically make it to death with consciousness. Then, when you die, the judgment has already begun. So now you're being judged. If you did everything correctly, you get to move on to the next stage, which is basically you get to stand in front of Osiris or Sirius, which is the system that our sun is in. So now let me break this down real quick so you can understand. One, let me just go back and finish this. That's basically what's taking place when you die. If you did everything correctly, you move on to the next level. That's basically what the scene is saying. Now, the part when you get to Osiris is a whole different thing. You get to stand before Osiris is saying, you get to, when you die and you are fully conscious, you get to make it out of this whole solar system, past the sun, into the system of Sirius, where everything is at. And a lot of people are in agreement that they believe when you die, your soul goes to Sirius. So now this is something that we're going to get into in later videos, but I'm going to give you a little bit of this briefly, because this is kind of like way down the line and I don't want to give away too much. But basically, when you ascend, if you are fully consciousness and you escape here, because remember, as I said, fully conscious, you can escape here. You won't be subject to the low vibratory state and be forced into matter anymore. And you're already dead anyway. So the body has been, it's gone. Your energy has been released and you're conscious enough to move and stand before Osiris or before Sirius and take the next trip. So, yeah, you have the whole universe basically at your disposal at that point. So you could go out and basically go incarnate or reincarnate in other systems. So you could basically go to other planets and incarnate as one of these beings in different solar systems and different planets, different life forms, and experience life as, whatever, as whoever they are, whatever they are doing. Maybe in consciousness, it may be other solar systems out there that's just like ours that forces matter. But if you are fully conscious, you shouldn't be subject to the loss of memory, but you may be. And that's one of the key things. It's an unknown there, where if you have to go through this again and be subject to this low vibratory state, would you lose the memory, which is basically losing consciousness? And this is something that you should possibly know, at fully conscious death. Or because of your experience here on the planet, you get to go off and, basically create and do whatever you want to do, create life or, experience different dimensions and stuff like that. But this is all, just, looking into what the information is telling us. So this is all what the implications is telling us, what's possible and what should happen upon a conscious death. Now, it's another thing we're going to get into, because you could possibly come back here, but I don't want to go too far and tell you what that's about, because of course some of you would say, well, why the hell would you want to come back here? But it's something more to that, and understanding the next level and what takes place. So you could go out and experience the universe and create life and do all kinds of things. And, you know what your dreams are like. You know what the dream world is. So just think about that. If you could consciously project all these things that you do in the dream world out in basically reality. I mean, the amazing things that you could do, it's endless. But I don't know if you ever seen, if any of you seen the movie, Watchmen. That's what it's called. Watchmen. Now in Watchmen, remember you had, Dr. Manhattan, who got caught in the, intrinsic field. Now the, intrinsic field basically, wipes away all matter. It basically wiped away his flesh, all his matter, everything, but it left his atoms intact along with his consciousness. And because he had the knowledge that he was able to basically pull himself back together consciously, and he basically took this form of a man, but in an energetic state. Basically, they was able to see his atom state of a man. Basically what he did, he took his energy and formed it back into the shape of a man, but you really was looking at his energetic state, which you might as well call atoms. But remember, Dr. Manhattan, when he talked about at the end, he was fighting, what's his name? I forget his name at the end. But he said, I walked on the surface of the sun. He'd been to all kinds of planets and everything like that. And when they realized that it wasn't good for him to come back to Earth, he was like, you know what? I'm going to go out there and visit some universes and basically visit life and create some life of my own. They were basically giving it away, because you got to remember, if you go back to that energetic state, which is basically, atoms, energy, everything is made up of atoms. So you have an infinite amount of atoms. The implications are you should be able to go out there with the knowledge that you have and recreate life and recreate, so much. So yeah, it gets really, really deep when you start to get into it. But that was a major part in the movie. So yeah, the ancient Egyptians understood death, and that at death is another transformation. You can either go be with the gods, which is basically, the sun and the planets and stuff like that, the universe, or if you were at such a low state, you would basically reincarnate. And if you was evil, you just had a evil nature or evil energy, then, Amit or Amut would basically devour, your heart. That's that, lion. It's a lioness mixed with a alligator mixed with a hippo. And it means soul eater, Amit. Soul eater will eat your heart and basically cast you into the abyss. Now the Egyptians also believed that if Amut did eat your heart, if you was like in that bad of a state where you couldn't reincarnate back to a human life, that a lot of people did reincarnate as animals. And this is one of the major things that you'll see, and not just in Egyptian mythology, but in a lot of other mythologies, people being reincarnated as animals. So we share a lot of DNA with animals, as I said, cats, dogs, and stuff like that. And it's amazing though how you see, it's a lot of animal videos out there. So you see cats and dogs and animals doing a whole lot of human, stuff. Human looking stuff, like watching TV and, riding bikes and all kinds of stuff that you would only think an animal could do. When you see a squirrel jet skiing, I mean, who knows? I mean, it's a sad thing to say, but some people could have been reincarnated and, they in your kitchen right now, eating out of the dog bowl. Who knows? But this is like what I tell people. You got to get this stuff in you, get it into your energy. If you understood how serious this stuff is, I know a lot of people don't associate comedic people or conscious people with believing in a hell. But as I said, we're basically in hell now. Earth is hell. This is hell. That's why in the movie Constantine, when they showed hell, it was Earth. He was on a planet. It was cars and stuff. What you mean it's cars in hell on fire? It was Earth. That's the metaphor trying to tell you. You come back here, you're coming back to hell. This is the underworld. It's just that simple. Remember, everything is up there, the universe. That's where the real stuff is at. This is underworld. So, hell is here. Now, here's the good thing for a lot of you. And if you're older and you're thinking that, it's no way I'm going to be able to, to transcend, to go to the next level. I'm probably going to get reincarnated, probably come back here. I might even have to come back as a dog or a cat or something, because it's hard for me to follow this stuff. And, I get a lot of emails, people worried about that. And a lot of older people talk to me and say, hey, man, it's too late for me. You know, I believe 50 years in the Bible and Jesus. And, you know, now I'm gonna have to come back here. And, obviously I've been back here, or, I'm not one of the ones who chose to come back here and do something. One of the reasons why I do this is because I want you guys to really get this information and get it in you and begin the cycle of understanding. So you have something, if you really understood what I was talking about in part 5 with the DNA at the end and how it's coded to reincarnate. But you got to remember, you bringing code with you from your previous life as well. It's still going to be a part of your DNA locked away. What's locked away is everything. Your whole existence is in that locked away DNA that is put there by your energy. You just have to unlock it. And then you have, you know, access to a vast amount of knowledge. And that's even deeper than that. We're going to get into that. And I always say that we're going to get into that because we got a lot to get into. Like, trust me when I tell you we do. It's a lot more. But I want you guys to understand what the yogis and the mystics talked about. You know, I took the name Merkaba. Actually, it's the real Merkaba, because Merkaba, we know, goes back to Hebrew mysticism, which you basically had some Hebrews who got it and understood what the stuff is about. And that's what the Merkaba is about. But I call myself the real Merkaba because, you know, they just basically took our shit and created their stuff. But, you know, it's basically the same. So, you know, in a way. But the yogis and mystics and their belief system, you know, they'll tell you that all of this information, you just have to touch it. Touch this information, get it in you a little. And if you can live, because they believe that our energy, our soul was intertwined with the cycle of the sun. And it was intertwined in this cycle with the sun, to where the sun will basically, it's basically part of, well, obviously the sun is basically part of the problem, but the sun is basically a major solution. It sustains us. It's basically God. But you got to understand the gravity that's here and the low vibratory state that this area exists in. The sun kind of helps it. And that's another long story about that. But our energy is caught in this cycle with the sun. And that if you just simply get this information in you, if you understand, you get it into your energy, enough of it. And if you live to at least 84 years old, your energy will complete the cycle with the sun. And at death, you will be released. So it's like, just live until you're 84. You could be the dumbest, stupidest mother ever. If you escape religion, because that's what's going to hold you back, if your energy is so dependent on it. And this is why I'm going to get into later. We're going to talk at the end of this video, why religion is created and why it must soak up your energy. We're going to get into that. But if you can just get past it, which is why I go so hard against Christianity and religion so hard on YouTube. And, you know, I can't stand it. The Bible is a good book. It's a good book as far as the information that's locked in it. But on the surface, we all know what it is. It's a bunch of bullshit. But, you know, the stuff that people teach on YouTube, I mean, even if you want to go to a lot of the misleaders that give you misleading information, if they talking against the Bible and against organized religion, I don't care. You'll learn. You'll figure out their bullshit just like I did. You'll learn. Get away from organized religion. That's what you don't want. You don't want your energy dependent on something, expecting something at death. Because what happens is, you know, when you die, these religious people already are not conscious. So their energy basically has this whole Jesus religious code within them. And they basically reincarnate, you know, with that same, you know, basic energy signature. And they're basically starting over from scratch. And that's definitely not what you want right there. And, you know, slavery, we was given the Bible so they can program this stuff into us, into our energy. And, you know, the rest of the world was programmed with Christianity as well, and, you know, Islam or what have you. It's programmed and it's a part of us. Remember the whole slave gene that we talk about. We all have this epigenome effect to where, we're feeling the effects of slavery, still to this day. This is all stuff that's going to be embedded in your DNA, that when you die, you're going to pass that energy along to, your reincarnated self, and also onto, your offspring, your children. So it's deep. It's crazy how sick these people is and what they understood and are able to do, because a lot of people don't understand. But to go back to my point, 85 years is what the mystics and the yogis say. If you just live 85 years and you get in you the energy of understanding that there's something more than death, and it's not going to heaven, because if you're not conscious at death anyway, you're already programmed to reincarnate, according to them, if you die before 84. Now, I believe they said 83 and a half. I think it's 83 years and 6 months or something like that. So I'm just saying 84. And you escape this cycle. And if you have this energy, this knowledge, you can basically move on to the next level. You won't be stuck. Plus, it's good to have this knowledge anyway, because you don't know if you're going to even make it, to 84. I mean, that's a long time. The average person lives to, their 60s or something, 70s in some cases. But a lot of people don't make it, to that 84, mark. And even people that's rich and got money, I mean, they be dying in their 60s and stuff too. Few people make it, to 84. And you get those people who make it, in their hundreds and, 100 and teens, and they live a long time. But, what knowledge do they have? If you was on this planet for that long, it's like, what do you know? And if you pay attention to ancient Kemet and you look at all the hieroglyphics, all the depictions of people everywhere, you don't really see no old people. You don't see no depictions on that, because the Egyptians wasn't even thinking about getting old. Their whole thing was getting this energy and getting the hell out of here, or transcending before they reached that age. This is why elders was looked at as like, being these great spiritual leaders and spiritual people and stuff like that, because they believed that, well, damn, if this elder reach 84 years old in the 80s or 90s, not only do they have wealth of knowledge and information they can help you out with, but, when they die and pass on, they'll be conscious in the next stage. And, this is why they pray to them. So it'll be like, well, you conscious now, you understand what's going on here on this planet, give us some blessing and help, give us some rain, do something, help us out here while we're here still, as mortals. And this is how they thought. So this is why they always prayed to the ancestors. You never hear nobody praying, to little Timmy who tripped and fell off a cliff and died when he was like, 13. They don't pray to Timmy. They pray to the ancestors, the old ones, the people who had that knowledge that can guide them. And what I was saying earlier about why you would want to come back here, we're going to get into that, because it has a lot to do with what I just said. I was about to give it away, but nah. We're going to get into that later, because that's another deep part. But, the Egyptians understood, death is just another transition. It's just another transformation that we all got to go through. And if you're right, you will be judged on the scales of Ma'at, which is basically just judging what you know and how you live. And if you live right and did what you were supposed to do, you move on. If not, you come back, or even worse, you get, come back as a turtle or something like that. We'll see. I think that's the worst animal you could come back as. It's like a turtle or a slug. I mean, you got to do some crazy sick shit to reincarnate as a slug, or a turtle. It's like, damn, what the hell you do? You a slug. What is that? And it's crazy. But, we got to look at that fact. A lot of people never thought about that. You don't really see no elderly in ancient Kemet. You never see no elderly artifacts or hieroglyphics that them really getting into what the elderly did. Because, I mean, at that point, they was considered basically gods, walking gods. And they was usually teaching in the mystery schools, are usually teaching and putting out information. But they was ready. They should have been ready to transcend to the next level at death and hopefully help out the Egyptians. But we know something happened. It was a loss of consciousness, like a shift into what we are, and knowledge was lost. And this is why it's weird that they would even pick up the kind of knowledge that they had. I mean, if you think about starting back from the beginning, nothing, not knowing anything, to come into the knowledge that they had and understand about the stars and DNA and bacteria. Bullshit. How the hell do y'all know all that? It's no way. If you had a son yesterday, there's no way in 10 years from now, if you don't teach him nothing, he's going to know about the universe. He's just not, because your DNA is coded with the bullshit from, your previous, ancestors. But these original, not original, these, ancestors of ours, these Ethiopians and Egyptians later on, was coded with the DNA of that civilization who was before them, who was called the gods, who had this knowledge. So when they was born, when they came up, they start to remember, what was going on, and remember some of this information and knowledge, and look out to the stars and start to understand and remember. And eventually, they made their way up from Ethiopia, from the Congo and Ethiopia, up through Nubia, the whole Nile Valley, into eventually Kemet. And obviously, when they got there, they was like, whoa. And I guess, stuff started to come back. But yeah, it would be cool if you could just, make it to 84, understand what's going on with the universe and with your body and stuff like that, and be able to get out of here and make it out of here just by living to 84, not having to worry about meditating and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I mean, in order for you to make it to 84 that long, you still want to do what you're supposed to do. Give your consciousness, your energy, as much help as you can. Because remember, if you live in America, I mean, they trying to kill you here. And, we're going to talk about this later and you understand a little bit why. So you want to just basically do what you need to do the right stuff, understand what's going on, act accordingly, and get your energy right and get the right information into your energy. Because information, this stuff is energy. It's feeding your energy. Information causes you to act. It causes you to feel some type of way. This is major stuff right here. The reason why you spent your money to buy this DVD is because your energy wants the information. You want to know. You understand the importance of it, or else you wouldn't, spend the money. So, it's a major thing, having right information, having right knowledge, and understanding the difference between fact and fiction, right and wrong. And you want the energy to be right, because I mean, just think about that. Scales in my eye. I'm not trying to have no lion, hippo thing, eat my heart. I want to be on the right side. So yeah, to live to 84 though, man, that's going to take some work. And, I'm working out now, trying to get in shape. I got to lose a couple pounds coming back to America. Definitely gained a little bit of weight. So I'm working on that myself and trying to, live right, eat right. And, the knowledge, I believe, is already there. So, I want to get you guys just prepared and understand, because I didn't have nobody to teach me none of this stuff. Like I said, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, only two people who I seen even, touching this information. And I didn't want to, not being prejudiced, but get it from the white people. I wanted to get it from black folk. So it was good that I found them. But, I remember just wishing and hoping that I could find more people who was into this information. I thought I was tripping, not being a Christian. So I remember how I felt. And as I told you guys before, I'm just trying to return the favor and help you guys out as much as I can. And it's when you put this kind of work into something, and you know how long you've been studying for, and how long you've been soaking up this knowledge. And when you put it out there and, people don't respect it. And obviously when you give out, as I said before, when you give out stuff for free, people don't respect it. And this is for serious people, as I always say. I expect you guys who are watching this video to be knowledgeable and be smart about what you study and what you do, and to do extra research. So, I love getting the questions, the ones that I do have the time to read, because, I dialogue and have some good dialogues with people who are knowledgeable about a lot of stuff. This it's supposed to be fun. I'm cool with the whole debate thing. That's what's up. It gets people really into the information more, but it's not for me, because it's just not for me. It's too much of a show. Like, at the end of it, if the other side had to basically convert then I'll be down for it. I'll be debating everybody. But, you know, it's like when you kick information like this to a person who has a whole nother mindset about something, you know, it's ego. It hurts the ego. And of course, when people get a blow to their ego or they get their feelings hurt, especially in a crowd of people, they are not going to admit that they are wrong. So if it's not a real benefit in debating, I don't really see no point. And, you know, a lot of people do it for the money or do it for the attention or what have you. You know, if anybody wants to really debate and go back and forth with knowledge and information, I do it all the time in the comment section. I get a lot of people that come straight with insults and stuff like that. And when I put down information, when we get to the facts, they always fold. So, you know, a lot of people show up to debates because they took the money or because they want to check, and they put down whatever they think is right. They don't care what the outcome is or who it affects. So if at the end, the person's not going to convert after they've proven wrong, then, you know, what's the point? So now, again, the ancient Egyptians, you know, everything was about transformation and understanding the knowledge of different beings and nature everywhere. So you can see it everywhere. I mean, it's something that you would expect, that you would imagine being a being who is surrounded by so much life. No TV, you know, no popular media or popular news or popular radio and stuff like that. All the stuff we are bombarded with today. I mean, you would look over there and see an animal doing something and wonder, you know, why do it? Why is this dung beetle rolling its dung everywhere? You know, what is going on with the falcon? The simple fact that they knew how high a falcon flew and everything like that, all the attributes that these animals have, as I said, is crazy. So, you know, again, they didn't want to be worshiping these animals. They wanted the attributes, the power of them, you know, and, you know, to embody that energy of these animals. And they deified them because, I mean, they did amazing stuff. So again, go back to the Book of the Dead. We're going to really do a whole video when we go into the Book of the Dead further, because as I said, if you get the Book of the Dead, the Book of Going Forth by Day, it's a lot of stuff in there that it's like, when you read it, as I said, it's going to be tough to understand. They got the plates in it. Like if you get this book, let me show you guys. I mean, they really have like really good illustration. It's amazing. I mean, the detail and everything, as you can see, is like, you know, on point, really on point. But they did it like, I guess you could say word for word, the translation into English. So, I mean, that's exactly how it was done. So they ain't try to put a word in between it to try to make it make sense. They put exactly what it says. So when you read it, it sounds kind of like all over the place a little bit. And it takes some, you know, some reading to really understand that whole lingo when you reading it. In some books, when they deciphering hieroglyphics, they'll just give you, they'll add words and put little stuff in there to try to make it make sense. In that book, they don't do that. So it sounds kind of weird. But I wanted to go to plate, what's that, 27? And this is the chapter for being transformed into a Benu bird. Remember, it wasn't saying, you know, worship the birds, but the attributes was amazing. And the ancient Egyptians really, really noticed that. So it says here, I have flown up like the primeval ones. I have become Kefri. I have grown as a plant. I have clad myself as a tortoise. I am the essence of every god. I am the seventh of those 7 Uriah who came into being in the west. Horus, who makes brightness with his person, that god who was against Seth. Thoth, who was among you in that judgment of him, who presides over Letopolis, together with the souls of Heliopolis, the flood which was between them. I have come on the day when I appear in glory with the strides of the gods, for I am Khans, who subdued the Lord, or Khonsu. Now, Khonsu is usually depicted as a boy with a side lock. He wears the Uriah with the cobra, with the rearing cobra, they call it. He is also shown as a baboon sometimes, and he is assimilated into Thoth. And you usually see him in certain places, but in the Book of the Dead, I think they have him in there a couple times. But when you go back and you read this and you look at what is being said, how he's basically talking about embodying different things to become, this God. And you're going to see this a lot. I mean, this is what it was about. It was about embodying energy in nature and understanding the attributes of everything. Because if you really want to really think about it, a supreme God, a supreme being would embody everything, the attributes of all these animals. So, it was almost like Pokemon. When you catch these beings and you have their energy and power, you want to catch them all. You want them all. You don't just want one. You want certain animals. You want certain animals for certain things in life that you might be going through. But eventually, the greatest power would be to have them all. And this is what they talked about. This is why they went through a lot of animals and deified them and the attributes and things like that. So when you start to look at, what it's talking about and the beginning parts of a lot of PreMetu3 in the beginning, when you go to Kemet, when you start looking around, I mean, it's almost like a book where you can see in stages where before the dynasties, and then when the dynasties came into being and the stuff they was talking about, the information all leads up to something. But I mean, really, the information is, it's about energy. It's about understanding energy and life and everything like that. And the ancient Egyptians understood that. I mean, basically, if you live in a good society, everything is all well and good. It's nobody who has an agenda that's basically trying to destroy the people. But if the people are one and united, then it shouldn't be no reason why you wouldn't live into 85. I mean, you live into your hundreds, possibly, if everything was right. And, the society was basically based on everybody being right. And this is what the ancient Egyptians tried to create. And they had this society, but they understood that we were doomed to our animalistic nature. And unless we really understood it, it would take control of us and cause us to do things. And of course, I mean, we see it all the time. It's people don't have control of themselves and they blame it on Satan and certain demons and stuff like that. And as they should, when you look at it as far as what these demons and stuff really represent, because demons and everything like that even the Egyptians talked about demons, is basically your bad deeds, your bad habits, your laziness, procrastination, your unwillingness for, success. And some people are content with what they got. They don't want to strive for anything extra if it's going to cost too much work. People are doomed to their own emotions. So when you really get down to it and think about it, it's like, how could you not want the best for yourself? How could you not want that? How could you not want to be the best at your field? I'm just going to go to work and, it's a paycheck. I don't want to do nothing else. If that's the case, then go do what you want to do where you'll put that much energy into it. But it's a emotion, a feeling you get. It comes over you and you succumb to it when you feel like, I don't want to get up for school. I don't want to get up to go to work. Laziness or what have you, or whatever type of way that you feel. You still got to remember at the end of the day, you put yourself in that situation and you got to deal with it. And some people don't deal with it and they just go on and, emotions build up. And next thing you know, somebody has, depression, or they having seizures or all kinds of medical issues because they don't understand that this energy is going to turn into something negative that's going to affect your body. Demons. So, yeah, this is what they talk about. The Egyptians get into all this, and we will get into this stuff so you can understand it. But it's so much that you manifest on yourself. And a lot of people don't realize that you manifest stuff all the time. You ever be thinking about an episode of like The Simpsons or Family Guy, something like that, and next thing you know, it's on? You ever do that? I know a lot of people do that too. And people are like, damn, I was just thinking about this episode that came on. And you don't even realize that, you done went back in time, or you went forward in time in your mind, or you manifested, what was going to happen, the TV show and everything like that. It's because you possibly have a serious connection to it. And, you manifest a lot of things in your life. It's what, when we say put it out to the universe, you just did that and it came back to you. And there's no way you could have known that. But not to get too deep into it, when you understand that this is frequency with the TV and everything like that, and it all makes sense when you really know what's going on, because you just basically tapped into something that was coming in energy. I'm not going to get into it too deep, but people do this all the time. You think about something that happens. You might be thinking about a twin. I got a twin. Shit happens all the time. That's real stuff. That twin stuff. I'll be thinking about my sister. Call her up. I was just about to call you. Or, I'll be getting ready to call. I'll be dialing, looking for her number, get ready to press it in, and then the phone rang to be her. Weird shit happens a lot. So, we do this, and people manifest their downfall, and they don't realize it. These are real demons and what it's really about. But the ancient Egyptians had their demons. We talked about Metu devours your heart off the scale of Ma'at. And then you have Apepi, who is basically the serpent, who is the enemy of the sun during its, daily trip through the cosmos. And, the serpent and God. I mean, this is where you could just look at this and see Genesis and God and the serpent, God and Satan and stuff like that. So many different metaphors between that whole God and Satan thing. As a matter of fact, I do have a series that's coming out on YouTube. The whole series will be on YouTube. I got a couple more series that's coming that's going to be on YouTube as well. Everything is not about DVD. And I've seen some of the comments. A lot of people think that, what happened to Merkaba? He ain't putting out series on YouTube no more. It's all about the DVDs now. And that's not the case. This information and this kind of stuff like this is just really deep stuff. And I don't want it to be, when you put something, like I said before, when you put something so deep together and you spend a lot of years doing it, and you know how deep this information, you know how many books a person will have to read to get to this. You don't want it to be just like, disrespected. And you get that. I get that a lot. But these series on Satan, it's still a deep series. It's going to be really good. But I'm doing this series on the power of Satan and everything like that. We're going to get into all this stuff, these deities, and what Satan really is. And I talked about him a lot, but it's more to it that we really got to look at and get into as it pertains to not just our government and everything like that and the power they're using against us, but a lot of other stuff, So we'll get into that series on YouTube. I think part 1 is going to be out pretty soon. I think probably the same day that I released this video. So you've probably seen it already, or probably going to watch it after this, but it'll be out soon. I already finished it. Just got to edit it. But yeah, it's a lot that we really got to think about when you consider all of the information so far that we talked about. And just this series, when you think about our government and how it really wants to keep us in this low state and distract us from everything, distract us from right knowledge and information. And they really have gotten to a point of power where they really don't care. As I said, the rule of the occult is the truth must be revealed, but they do understand that about time the truth is revealed, or they put it out to a point where it can be revealed, it's going to be too late. So, I mean, they're already way ahead of us. If you want to be real with it, their agenda may be fulfilled if people don't wake up. I mean, but as I was talking about, they probably understand there's certain moves that they can't make if they want to stay in power. And probably every scenario that they acted out, when they made a certain move, they probably see that the people will rebel and will rise up against them. We're going to probably back and forth this thing until the point where they can make enough machines to control us, because that's what it's going to take. Human nature, people who have empathy will not just go and kill a bunch of people. It's just not going to happen. You will have to create super soldiers, people who don't feel, and then eventually we will probably wipe them out too, because of, the sheer number of us versus them, which is why they want to get our numbers down. So when you think about that, getting the numbers down, and you think about, well, what if it is true that if they corrupt us enough, so much, and we believe it in this Bible, and we sin it and all this kind of crazy stuff that we do, that we don't reincarnate as a human being, we come back as an animal. So that's another way to get the population down, if you want to look at it in that way. I mean, that's crazy, but you understand why they must keep us from understanding this stuff and why they do certain things that they do. So when you look at this government system and what they are trying to do, they're trying to alter the natural path of nature. And they have already done that, a lot of genetic modifications and things that they have introduced into nature. The whole problem with the bees, something was done to the bees and somebody gave them some kind of basically AIDS. So the same kind of virus that the AIDS virus is, somebody infected bees with it and they was, passing it around. And a lot of bees was wiped out, for a reason. They wanted to control pollination. And of course, they want to eventually have control over all of the plants that will be good for you, all the good plants, and introduce onto the earth a plant that can survive, but that's not going to give you the good nutrients. They want to keep that for themselves. It's sick and crazy, and it's cold and calculated, and that's something that'll take a long time to do, but they have already set it in motion, which is weird. But then you have to also look at the effect that they have had on humans, on us. And a lot of people are not realizing that. In my generation, if you in your 30s, you understand when we was young, we looked young. We grew up looking like, it took a long time to grow up. I have a friend, my best friend, his son is autistic. And we was talking about how, his growth is slow, it seems like. He's like, I think it's like 8 or 9. But he looks like he's like 6 or 7, 5, 6 or 7. But you got to remember, that's how we used to grow. And now kids, when they 8 or 9, they look like they 15, and women, the girls too, they look way older because their mind is soaking in too much stuff and causing them to grow. They're watching, Friday and all kinds of crazy movies when they're like 4, 5, 6, and their brain is sucking in all this negative, nasty information. But his brain, because he has autism, works differently. And one, he don't watch that kind of stuff, but two, the stuff that he do watch, he's not soaking all this stuff into his energy, into his body, causing his body to grow. And then you couple that with the stuff they put into the foods. They are breeding us and this different breed of human that's growing really quick and dying really quick. All this stuff is against nature, is unnatural. And then they have the ability for us to be able to regrow limbs and attach limbs. We know that they can do this kind of stuff. But now you see them going in the direction of robotics, and you see that you have people who lose limbs, and they got this new robotic stuff that's coming out to where, you can basically have a robotic arm, like a Terminator arm, and be able to move and have it function. And, and eventually they'll probably have it to where it'll look normal, but it's not, organic. It's not real. And this is the direction it's going into. And, James Cameron, gave us Terminator. And when you look at it, it's like, it's possible. I don't know about the whole time travel thing, that whole part, but they basically created in Terminator 2 that whole robot. It's possible. You see the robotics and the technology that they have. They're going into this different direction that is so anti-nature. It's against, universal law, and, it's not going to add up. This is why at the Revelations, Satan, who deceived the nations and all this and that, they are expecting some kind of judgment at the end. And as I said before, that could be just some kind of dupe for people who are Christians to think, well, you're going to get yours in the end. But they also could be saying that they know that this is not right, and it could possibly be some kind of ramifications for that, which I believe it will be, because they're going against nature, and you only can do it for but so long. And they do stuff ritualistically for a reason. And as I said, one of these days I'm gonna do a video and explain. We're gonna really get into rituals. Like, that was another question that I got. Somebody asked me about rituals, and it's gonna take a while before y'all get ready for that. For me to get y'all ready for that, because it's some weird shit when you get into rituals, and it's like y'all not gonna understand it. Y'all gonna be like, yo, this shit is crazy. He tripping. I'm not talking about sacrificing no chickens and all that kind of stuff like that. At this point, but that's voodoo, and it's still something with that is gonna be tough to understand, man. Some of this stuff is gonna be hard for y'all to get. I think when you really start getting into Metu Nature and looking at what they was talking about, and go back into a lot of ancient religions, which we will do. And understand what this stuff really means, and I'll break it down on a level where you can get it. It'll make sense, and you understand rituals. Rituals is something that it's a must for certain things, and it may not be for you. Some people just it's not going to be for everybody. But I don't want you to think it's some kind of evil, spooky, satanic thing. It is something that is a must, and it helps nature, and it helps people. It helps you, and you'll understand when we get to that point, which is be way down the road. But their goal is obviously to pervert nature, and this is what we're seeing right now. So they want to twist and turn and change nature and reality to fit them and whatever agenda that they have down the line, to where things are growing the way they want it to grow. People are being born the way they want them to be born, with the kind of mindset they want them to have. And they already done it. They already changed us. If you go back and look at people, withstanding the whole racism shit in the 40s and 50s, 60s, totally different people from today. Totally different mindset and everything. I mean, you can see the basic evolution of people. I mean, we can look at it and see how we have changed in the mindset of people. I mean, it's so clear in white folks how much they changed, due to the culture. This is the direction that they wanted to be in for, a lot of different reasons, but it's not a natural thing, and it's not going to help us. It's hurting us. And it's really hurting people's energy. And you couple that with the fact that you got people out here whose brain is so screwed up, they doing stuff against the Bible at the same time praising the Bible. I mean, that's like, and then they don't want to realize it. So that got to be messing with their energy so crazy, like, they mental. I can imagine the kind of dreams that they have. It's got to be crazy. So this is what they're trying to do. And when we get more deeper into all this stuff, you'll understand, and you probably understand already. You can see this stuff, the psychological effects, the whole thing with Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and stuff like that. I mean, that whole thing with Negan beating what you call him head and everything. I mean, all that is to shock you. That is to prepare you from some kind of feature where your loved one can get killed right in front of you and you can just brush it off. I mean, it's to desensitize you, because a lot of people was attached to that character. Can you imagine the Asian people? I mean, we finally get this Asian dude with a good role, and he get his head bashed in. He was there from like day one. So a lot of people was emotionally attached to this character, and to have him go out in that way, do you know what this kind of stuff does to your energy? That type of way that you feel seeing that. And it's a shock to your system. That's why they say that's a shock to your system. And this is what it's doing. It's shocking your system. It's tapping. It's messing with your energy. It's fucking with your frequency. And this is what this stuff is designed to do. Scary movies and everything. When you feel that, inside you, like a shock, that scariness, this is what it's designed for, to disturb your energy, to affect your dreams. And it's going to do that. And they're preparing people for, to see their loved ones killed and stuff like that. We don't know what the future is going to hold with Trump being in the White House. We don't know what's going to happen with that situation. And that's coming soon. New Year's will be here soon. I will definitely be looking at this whole thing, this inauguration and all that, eyes wide open. But so far, believe it or not, it don't look too bad. The moves that he made so far, not talking about the people who he put in place, but the financial moves he made so far, with Japan, y'all probably heard about the Japanese dude investing like, it was over $10 billion or something like that into the American economy. That's amazing. And he made a lot of other good business moves so far, which is why the dollar is been going up. It's been strong. It didn't go down at all yet. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think at some point they got to fix stuff. They got to fix things. They can't go in the direction that they first started to go. There's too much information out there. People are waking up. So they have to go in a direction that's completely different. And it's going to definitely be a direction of deception. And it is not far-fetched that they can get their agenda completed out of completely sane and, well working America, and we could be smiling our way into a new world order and everybody is happy and successful. And we don't even know that everything has just been taken over and we don't give a damn because we living good. So you just got to watch the enemy, understand what they doing and, the moves that they making. And, right now it's definitely going to be the time to watch and understand. And, as I always say, just keep getting this information in you. If not from me, then there's plenty of people on YouTube who put out good information that you can check out. It's a lot of controversy that's going on the internet right now with this whole PreMetu3 thing. The whole question of was it translated? And I think I talked about this before but to me, it's just such a stupid question. Like, what? What do you mean was it translated? I mean, all the stuff we know right now is we don't know it. Dr. Ben wasn't in Kemet reading hieroglyphics, because when you talk about PreMetu3, you're basically just talking about ancient Egyptian writing, the writing on the wall, the oldest, the sacred, so-called sacred writings, PreMetu3. But they was reading and deciphering the stuff for a long time. As I said, you had a lot of Africans, Dr. Ben being one, Sheikh Anta Diop, and a few others who started from scratch. And because, of course, we weren't just going to simply take the white man's word for it. And yeah, we found a lot of flaws, myself included, found a lot of flaws in their translations and everything like that. And some you can say was purposely done. But others you can look at and just say, well, it's because they didn't understand the culture or, the lingo at that time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, somebody that I seen put it perfectly. And in a book I was reading, I think it was Sheikh Anta Diop that was talking about like how we'll say, "What's up, man?" 10,000 years from now, they probably won't even know what the hell a "what's up" is, stuff like that. It's a different lingo back then. And because they didn't understand the lingo, they couldn't really get into the true translations. So it just took some deeper digging into a lot of the hieroglyphics, a lot of the information to understand that, when it's talking about, when it shows this right here, it's really talking about this. It was kind of like a metaphor or like a kind of a slang. I'm going to the crib, and obviously it's not talking about a crib like that a baby sleeps in. It's talking about a house, stuff like that. This is the kind of problems they was running into that we find. So a lot of people was able to come into Kemet and really get better translations. And I've looked at a lot of the research and drew my own conclusions, which I will present in all these DVDs. So, yeah. And I'm going to go. I got a series coming out that I'm going to start in probably a month or so, because we got to do this, man. Like, come on. It got to get done. And nobody has done this. I think somebody did it on YouTube as far as reading the Bible book by book. But I'm going to go through the entire Bible book by book. I probably put like 3 books on each DVD or something like that. But we're going to go through the Bible, and I'm going to break it down from Genesis all the way to Revelations. And we're going to get into the metaphors of each book and what it's really talking about. And we're going to go through it. So that way, when it's all done, you can have that in your library, that whole breakdown of the entire Bible, book by book, and what it's talking about. I'm going to cross-reference it with other books and the codexes as well, and the other, NIV and ESV and all that crap like that. We're going to get into all that. It's something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I'm definitely going to do it. But yeah, I'm going to drag this thing on. Part 4, eventually we're going to get into learning how to read the hieroglyphics. I'm going to teach you guys that. So that's something we're going to do. We got a lot more. We got, what's this? 3. We got, this is going to go to 6 too. So we got 3 more of these before this series is done. The Mystery School series I started, and I got a couple more that's going to come. And we could get into that, but I still got stuff that's going to come on YouTube as well. So yeah, I want to thank you guys as always for your support, taking the time to watch the entire DVD and support. You know, I appreciate it. You know, this is it's a fun series to do for me because I can see where it's leading to, and if you guys are really soaking in this information, you probably can too as well. But you're gonna like where it goes eventually. I mean, stuff benefits us when you know what's going on. If we do what we're supposed to do, it'll benefit us. We got to watch out for the powers that be, of course. But in the end, if we do what we're supposed to do, you know, we'll be straight. And yeah, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase. See you guys next video. I forget the title of this Satan series I'm going to start, but it'll be on YouTube. If it's not on YouTube already, check it out. And yeah, see you guys next video. Thanks for watching. Hey, I got a Twitter too. I'm on the Real Merkaba, at the Real Merkaba on Twitter. So follow me on Twitter if you got a Twitter. And because I do post on Twitter a lot of things sometimes. And if you don't follow me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook as well at therealmerkaba.com. I mean, the Real Merkaba. So yeah, follow me on these things and add me on there. Still submit your questions to questionsformerkaba@gmail.com. All that. A lot I want to do, a lot I want to get into. I'm about to make this transition pretty soon. Well, not pretty soon because I forgot I got some more stuff to do here. But in a few months from now, I got to go back to Sweden. I was supposed to move January, but now I'm going to be here for a few more months. So, excuse me. I got to make that whole trip back, and it's a lot. I got to re-enter life over there, and it's, get my business, to the next level, since I'm going to be done school and I can actually get more clients now, having my PhD pretty soon. So, of course, I'm not going to go through the whole graduation ritual and put that damn Saturn board on my head. But yeah, I'll be receiving my PhD pretty soon, and I have a doctorate in computer science. So that's cool, but it'll help me with my personal business and the stuff that I do as far as computer wise. But yeah, I try to keep things separate. This is like personal life stuff. This is like me doing these series and putting this stuff out. This is like I don't want to call it a hobby, but it kind of sort of is. But it's something that I feel compelled. I know this is my purpose. My purpose here is to do this and to help you guys out, because nobody helped me, and this is what I'm supposed to do. But yeah, I'm rambling on. But see you guys next video, and thanks for watching.